going to continue where we're going to start again from the beginning, and then we're going to continue where we left off, going through detail about the meaning of the prostrations. So as always, if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to speak right up. So if everybody has their pecha, and we're going to go and use that tonight. It's got the prayers in there. So if you don't mind, tonight I'm going to recite the prayers along with the practice and so on. So we'll do it sprightly. So I'm on page 1, the introduction. For the benefit of all sentient beings, the most gracious Buddha, Shakyamuni, spoke the Dharma through the sutras and tantras. The 5 profound paths of Mahamudra and the 6 yogas of Naropa are the essence of the Buddha's teachings, which enable one to attain enlightenment even in one lifetime. Everybody needs the microphone, mute their microphones, please. However, to practice the path of Mahamudra and the 6 yogas of Naropa, one must be fully convinced of the 4 ways of turning the mind, or the 4 ordinary foundations. The 4 ways of turning the mind are the basis for the successful practice of any of the yanas. Then one practices the 4 extraordinary foundations, or the Vajranyana Ngondro, to purify the negative karma and obscurations of the mind, speech, and body, and to develop virtues. The great 12th century Tibetan saint, Lord Jigten Sumgun, the second Nagarjuna, said, "The Ngondro is even more important than the higher practices. One must truly understand and practice the simple yet profound foundational teachings before one begins the higher teachings." Page 2, the altruistic motivation. We'll do this once in English and move along. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. All sentient beings, limitless as the sky, take refuge in the glorious kind Lama Vajradhara, the embodiment of the body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 times. Source of the 84,000 categories of the teachings and Lord of the Sanghas. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soki chodam la, Shangju Badu Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Jinso Ki Pe Sonamgi Drola Penshir Sange Jupasho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she dewa dang dewe grudang dempar jurchi. Dug now dang do now gi gu dang dra wa jurchi. Dug now me pe dewa dang mi dra wa jurchi. Nay ring chak dang ni dang dra wei tang nam la ne pa jor chi. Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offering, confession, rejoicing, requesting, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. The 4 ways of turning the mind. Oh, this kind of leisure and endowment is supremely difficult to obtain. When we obtain this body, which is easily lost, do not waste it meaninglessly, but rather use it to attain the ultimate liberation, joyous result. Take a moment and contemplate precious human life. Okay. Second, the nature of all phenomena is impermanence. Death is a certainty to all who are born. Death can descend any time like a drop of morning dew on a blade of grass. Quick, it is the time to make effort for the essence of Dharma. Contemplate the meaning of impermanence. Okay. Third, the fruit of one's positive karma is happiness. Suffering is the fruit of negative karma. The inexorable karmic causation is the mode of abiding of all dharmas. Henceforth, practice the Dharma by distinguishing between what should be practiced and what should be given up. Take a moment, contemplate the meaning of karma, cause, and result. Okay, number 4. In the 3 lower realms, and even in the 3 higher ones, there is not an instant of absolute happiness. I will avoid the root cause of my samsaric existence and practice the excellent path of peace to enlightenment. Contemplate the meaning of the suffering of samsara or the faults of samsara. Okay, page 16. Om, a a, I, u, vi, li, o, ang a, ga na, za na, da na, da na, ba ma, yawala wa, sa, ha, kriya, so ha. Om, a a, I, u, vi, li, o, ang a, ga na, za na, da na, da na, ba ma, yawala wa, sa, ha, kriya, so ha. Om, a a, I, u, vi, li, o, ang a, ga na, za na, da na, da na, ba ma, yawala wa, sa, ha, kriya, so ha. Om Yadharma Hetu Prabhava, Hetu Tekan Tadagato, Heo wa Tatata, Tekansa, Yonorada, Evamwadi, Ma Shimani, So Ha. Om Yadharma Hetu Prabhava, Hetu Tekan Tadagato, Heo wa Tatata, Tekansa, Yonorada, Evamwadi, Ma Shimani, So Ha. Om Yadharma Hetu Prabhava, Hetu Tekan Tadagato, Heo wa Tatata, Tekansa, Yonorada, Evamwadi, Ma Shimani, So Ha. All phenomena arise from causes. Those causes have been taught by the Tathagata. The cessation too has been proclaimed by the great ascetic, the Shramaniye. So be it. All phenomena arise from causes. Those causes have been taught by the Tathagata. The cessation too has been proclaimed by the great ascetic, the Shramaniye. So ha. So be it. All phenomena arise from causes. Those causes have been taught by the Tathagata. The cessation too has been proclaimed by the great ascetic, the Shramaniye. So be it. Om Vajrasattva Samaya. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manu Palaya. Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bawa. Suto Kayo Me Bawa. Supo Kayo Me Bawa. Anuraktu Me Bawa. Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa. Sara Karma Sutsa Me. Sitsan Triya Kuruham. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan. Sara Tada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Baba Mahasamaya Satwaha. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya. Vajra Sattva Tenopa Drista Dredo Me Bava. Suto Kayo Me Bava. Supo Kayo Me Bava. Anuraktu Me Bava. Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa. Sara Karma Sutsa Me. Sitsan Triya Kuruham. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan. Sarva Tathagata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya. Vajra Sattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava. Suto Kayo Me Bhava. Supo Kayo Me Bhava. Anuraktu Me Bhava. Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa. Sara karma sutsame sitsan triya kuru hong. Ha 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 ho Bhagawan. Sara tada gata bajra mame munsta bajri bawa mahasamaya satwaha. One time in English. Om Vajrasattva Samaya. Help to protect my vow, to purify myself. May you remain firm with me. Grant me the complete satisfaction. Grow with me. Be loving towards me. Grant me the attainments to master the powers beyond body and nature. Show me all the deeds of body, speech, and mind. Make my mind heart good, virtuous, and auspicious. Revel in the bliss of the four joys, O Blessed One, who embodies the essence within me. Do not abandon me. Grant me the realization of the indestructible nature. Make me one with you. Thus I signify my unity with non duality. Ah. Now, the increasing mantras, we'll do the English first, and then we'll do the Tibetan or the Sanskrit. One time in English, then we'll do the 7 times in Sanskrit. Arising from a defiled mind, be reborn into great wisdom. Arising from defiled lives, remember and purify the flower of wisdom. Arising great holy wisdom, purify this life. Om Sambar Sambar Bimanasar Mahazambo Hung. 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 Om Smar Smar Bimar Skar Mahazambu Hung Pe. 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 Om Sambar Sambar 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 Mahazambu Hung Pe. Blessing the Mala beads. The enlightened body, speech, and mind are the precious Dharma protectors whose mirror-like wisdom is the door to purification. The body, speech, and mind of pure love is ultimate wisdom. Om Richi Ramana Prarataya Hong Pe. 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 Om Ri Padmanurti Shvari Hong. 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 Om Ah 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 hong 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 om ah Om ah hong 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 om ah Om ah hong 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 om ah Okay, so those are the opening prayers and the four thoughts to turn the mind to the Dharma and the increasing mantras. Now we turn to the actual practice. We're on page 24. The benefits of taking refuge. If the merit of taking refuge in the triple gem could manifest in form, the whole universe could not contain it. Even though attempting to describe the infinite benefits of practicing refuge is like attempting to empty the ocean with a teaspoon. There are 8 benefits as explained in the jewel ornament of liberation. One becomes a Buddhist. It becomes the basis of all the precepts and vows. It exhausts all previous non-virtuous deeds. It protects one from obstacles created by humans and non-human. One accomplishes all one wishes. One gathers a great amount of merit. One will not fall into the lower realms. One attains Buddhahood swiftly. Refuge practice is the essence of all other practices. Therefore, one always should emphasize this practice. It has inconceivable beneficial effects. Through this practice, one can achieve the fearless state. Now, page 25, the first page, the first part of the refuge prostration practice. So note, we begin with one pointed mind, taking refuge in the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Meditate the surroundings as inseparable from a Buddhahood. In the space in front of me is a lion throne on which are a lotus, sun, and moon disk seat, in the center of which sits the kind root lama in the form of Vajradhara with the 7 characteristics. Blue in color, 2 arms, holding a vajra and a bell, crossed at the heart and gracefully sitting in the vajra position, adorned by the silken robes and various precious jewel ornaments, and surrounded by all the lineage lamas. In front of the lion throne is the Yidam Shakar Samvara, the male and female aspects in union, whose manifest is simultaneously appearance and emptiness. As the right side of the throne is the assembly of the Buddhas of the 3 times, possessing all the auspicious signs of a Buddha, together with the 1,000 Buddhas of this glorious, fortunate Kalpa. Behind the throne is the Prajna Paramita, proclaiming the relative and ultimate meaning of the 3 yanas. To the left of the throne is the assembly of the compassionate bodhisattvas, surrounded by the Sangha of the 3 yanas. Around the base of the throne are the Dharmapalas, an ocean of guardians gathered like clouds. The refuge prayer. Buddhas, Dharma, Sanghas, Yidams, and Dharma protectors, to these supreme objects of refuge, for protection from the hordes of suffering of samsara, we, all migrators, go for refuge until enlightenment is attained. Buddhas, Dharma, Sanghas, Yidams, and Dharma protectors, to these supreme objects of refuge, for protection from the hordes of suffering of samsara, we, all migrators, go for refuge until enlightenment is attained. Sangye choso gyedam chokyong che, gab chog nam la dag sog jowakun, si pe jik sog nam na le kyob chi, Changshu mato bardu kapsu chio. I rejoice when all sentient beings are happy and free from the samsaric suffering and swiftly attain ultimate Buddhahood. For this purpose, from now on until I achieve enlightenment, I will follow the path for the ultimate goal. I rejoice when all sentient beings are happy and free from the samsaric suffering and swiftly attain ultimate Buddhahood. For this purpose, from now on until I achieve enlightenment, I will follow the path to the ultimate goal. Drokunde den dugnel drawa nadang, nor du la me to pardagyawe. De chir deng nes changshu ma to bar, ne pe don chok lam la jog parcha. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lama. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. At this time, we recite the refuge prayer as many times as possible, and we meditate that the refuge visualization dissolves into oneself, and oneself dissolves into emptiness. We continue reciting this prayer, this long refuge prayer, the refuge prayer, as we do our prostrations. So in Tibetan, we recite, Drinsan Sawa Dangur Par Jepe Paldan Lama Dampa Namla Kapsu Chio. Yidam Kilgorgi La Sok Namla Kapsu Chio. Sange Chomdende Namla Kapsu Chio. Dampe Chom Namla Kapsu Chio. Pepege Du Namla Kapsu Chio. Pa Woka Jocho Kyome Shong Yashegi Cheng Dendam Pa Namla Kapsu Chio. Drinsan Sawa Dangur Pa Jepe Padan Lama Dampa Namla Kapsu Chio. Yidam Kilgorgi La Sok Namla Kapsu Chio. Sange Chomdende Namla Kapsu Chio. Dampe Cho Namla Kapsu Chio. Pape Gedun Namla Kapsu Chio. Pawo Kajo Cho Kyong Song Me Song Yashe Gi Chang Dang Dempa Namla Kapsu Chio. Drinsan Sawa Dangur Par Jepe Padan Lama Dampa Namla Kapsu Chio. Yidam Kilgorgi La Sok Namla Kapsu Chio. Sange Chom Dende Namla Kapsu Chio. Dampe Chom Namla Kapsu Chio. Pepe Ge Du Namla Kapsu Chio. Pa Woka Jojo Kyo Me Shong Yeshe Gi Cheng Deng Dempa Namla Kapsu Chio. Drinsan Sawa Dangur Par Jepe Padan Lama Dampa Namla Kapsu Chio. Yidam Kilgorgi La Sok Namla Kapsu Chio. Sange Chom Dende Namla Kapsu Chio. Dampe Chom Namla Kapsu Chio. Pepe Ge Du Namla Kapsu Chio. Pa Woka Jojo Kyo Me Shong Yeshe Gi Cheng Deng Dempa Namla Kapsu Chio. So for the sake of example, I recited it in English, recited it in Tibetan, recited it in Tibetan with a melody, and chanted it at several different speeds. So the object, of course, is to accumulate the prostrations. That's what we count while we are reciting this mantra, this accumulation mantra. But it's not the mantra that we're accumulating, it is the prostrations. So our goal is to accumulate 100,000 perfect prostrations. So in the Drikung Kagyu lineage, we do 111,111, so that we have ample time to learn the practice and gain our rhythm with the practice, and to be able to accumulate 100,000 perfect prostrations. So now we turn to the meaning of the prostrations. So we have this green text that we were using last time. So everybody has that, I presume. So we turn to page 1, the refuge prayer, which we just recited, but it is here for us again to memorize and to recite. And also here is included the beginning stanza of the refuge prayer. So it is very good to memorize this and to recite this at least one time before we really do the refuge prayer. So we'll do that now. It says, all sentient beings, limitless as the sky, take refuge in the glorious kind Lama Vajradhara, embodiment of the body, speech, and mind, qualities and activities of the Buddhas and the 10 directions and the 3 times, source of the 84,000 categories of the teachings, and Lord of the Sanghas. Until enlightenment is reached by myself and all sentient beings who have been my mother, equal in extent to space. We go for refuge to the glorious Holy Lama, together with the kind root and lineage lamas. We go for refuge to the deities and the mandalas of the Yidams. We go for refuge to all the exalted Buddhas. We go for refuge to the perfect Dharma. We go for refuge to the excellent order of the Sanghas. We go for refuge to the Dakas and Dakinis, male and female, Dharma guardians, Dharma protectors, all of whom possess the eye of wisdom. So as we stand and we are preparing ourselves to begin our prostrations, we are bringing our hands to our forehead, to our crown, and to our throat, and to our heart to visualize the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the body, speech, and mind. So we recite or the meaning of this is Chagsal. Chagsal is the Tibetan word or phrase that is refuge prostrations. So we say Chagsal. I make these offerings of prostrations and mantra recitations to purify my body and speech, and to purify my mind by developing the 3 faiths, the trusting faith, the longing faith, and the clear faith in the 3 jewels. I stand facing north in front of the lineage tree. All peaceful deities are facing the tree, offering their many blessings. All wrathful deities are facing the outside of the tree to protect against demons, maras, obstacles, and obstructions. On my right side is the Father, whose cause is the origin of being. To the Father, I offer gratitude. On my left side is the Mother, whose love is immeasurable, offering her kindness invitation. To the Mother, I offer loving kindness and compassion. In front of me are all my enemies, the lower realm beings, giving cause to generate patience and practice tolerance. Behind me are all sentient beings, higher realm beings, giving cause to be mindful of the lineage tree and Mahamudra, emptiness, clarity, and unimpededness. Next, I'm still standing in front of the tree. I haven't done any prostration yet. I'm visualizing these statements. These are the reasons why we are doing these prostrations and the visualization of what the prostrations mean. From my forehead emerges a white fire to purify all my past misdeeds and defilements, searing away all the negative karma and blockages of the body in order to give opportunity to manifest the 32 major and 80 minor marks of the Buddha, for the benefit of the enlightenment of all sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara. I sow the seeds of the Nirmanakaya, the emanation body of the Buddha Shakyamuni. So a white fire coming from the forehead. You can look at it as a single flame or as many flames, as a concentrated beam of fire, burning away all the negative karma and blockages of the body. From my throat emerges a red fire to purify my speech and actions, to enhance language and accumulate the 60 melodious voices for the benefit of enlightenment of all sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara. I blossom as the flower of the Sambhogagaya, the subtle enjoyment body of the Buddha Vajranyana, representing the 5 Buddha families. So it's Vajranyana, Ascobia, Ratnasambhava, Amitabha, and Amagoga City, as well as Vajranyana. So this red hot fire coming from the throat, burning away all the negativities, all the sufferings, all the causes of sufferings caused by speech and by action. From my heart emerges a blue fire to purify my mind, to enable and develop wisdom, ultimate wisdom, for the benefit of the enlightenment of all sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara. I bear the fruit of the Dharmakaya, the truth body of the primordial Buddha, Vajradhara Samantabhadra. So Buddha Vajradhara is one name, Buddha Samantabhadra is the second name. They're both Sanskrit names, and they both refer to the primordial Buddha, so pure, it's unborn, but within all the enlightened beings, within all of us, but is active in all enlightened beings. So to help us remember that. So a blue fire coming from our heart center. So whether you think of it as a single flame that involves and brings the whole body together and burning away all the blockages, all the mental blockages of the mind, of the heart mind, to purify the heart mind, to enable the fruit of the Dharmakaya, the truth body of the primordial Buddha Vajradhara Samantabhadra. So that completes the visualization as we are standing facing the lineage tree. Now it's time to begin doing the prostrations. So the prostrations are called 5-point prostrations, and there are several ways to do them. The proper way, the best way, if we can manage it, if we can do it, is to do a full body prostration, where both our knees go on the ground, both our hands go on the ground, and we stretch out and our forehead goes to the ground. So those are the 5 points, our 2 knees, our 2 hands, and our forehead going to the ground completely. And then we gather the blessings by reaching our 2 hands out in front of our head like this and bring the blessings to the crown of our head like this as we are lying on the ground. And then we stand and we continue the process. If we're not able to do the full body prostrations, then we can do a short 5-point prostration by staying in our place, keeping our feet on the ground, and we go to our knees and our hands go right in front of our knees. And then we bow down and our head, the forehead, touches the floor in between our 2 hands. So this way we're not stretching out. So sometimes we don't have the physical strength to do the full body prostrations. So this is an easier way to do the 5-point prostration. Also, sometimes when we're in the shrine room and we are with the lamas and many other people are in the audience and so on, there's no room for everybody to stretch out and do the full body prostration. So we will do this short 5-point prostration in our seat pretty much. So we're kind of staying very compact as we do that, but we're touching the ground with our two knees, our two hands, and our forehead. And Om Ahum, we will do that 3 times in the shrine room like that. If we're unable, while we're doing the refuge prostration part for the Ngondro, we're going to accumulate that short practice like that, if that's the best that we can do. If that is difficult, then we can do it from our knees, where we stay on our knees and we take our hands and we put our hands down in front of our knees and our forehead down. And that way we don't have to keep standing up and going back down to our knees. We can remain on our knees like that. So that's an even easier way to be able to do the prostrations. And then there is the 4th way when it's difficult to even do that for a number of reasons, physical problems or whatever, and you're on your seat or you're standing and you can't get down, so you simply just take your hands at the crown of your head and at your throat and at your heart, and that you're continually doing this, taking these mudras while you are reciting the mantras and accumulating that. So whatever it takes, it's creating a single pointed mindfulness of the meaning of the practice and so on. So if you can do the full body, of course, is where the most benefit is. So now we need to understand what the 5 points represent. So here, when we are going down, the first left hand touches the ground. So the left hand on the ground is knowledge and fulfills the wishes of all sentient beings to be as the Buddha and practice the 4 great deeds of generosity, melodious voice, implementing the teachings, and living life as a practice in order to attract many disciples. So our left hand, our left side, is what we are receiving. Our right side is what we are giving. So we're receiving knowledge, we're receiving wisdom, but this wisdom is of phenomenal nature. Ultimately, it becomes of the ultimate nature, but before we can do that, we have to be able to understand ourselves and phenomenal nature and our relationship in phenomenal nature in order to be able to liberate ourselves from it, in order to recognize the causes of the sufferings of why it is that we are in phenomenal nature, why it is that we have a body and so on. And through that, we're accumulating this knowledge. So the right hand is symbolizing that. And as we do that, as it says here, that we are practicing the 4 great deeds of generosity, melodious voice, implementing the teachings, and living life as a practice in order to attract many disciples. Because what we find as we begin to grow as a Buddhist practitioner, we are taking our place in a Sangha. We are being part of a Sangha, and we are sharing with our Sangha brothers and sisters. So there's a conversation that goes on. And sometimes in the beginning, well, definitely in the beginning, we're on the receiving end of that we're always listening, we're always taking things in, we're hearing these things maybe for the first time, or we're still processing them over and over again. But as we become a little bit more accustomed to that, a little bit more advanced, then we begin to share what we have learned with other people that are coming in, with beginners, or maybe with our advanced brothers and sisters, and talking about how it is that these things work within ourselves. And we begin to help ourselves to refine what all this knowledge means and how we practice it and so on. So the 4 great deeds of generosity that we are sharing, and that the melodious voice, that we are finding pleasant ways in which that we communicate with our brothers and sisters, that it's not done with any kind of harshness or any kind of prejudgment or anything like that. And that if people have a difficulty in speaking and finding the words that they need, if they have come from another culture, from another language, and their words are not completely clear, that we have patience for them, and that maybe they don't understand our words. So we're trying to help. We're using the 60 melodious voices so that we can help each other to communicate. We're not shutting ourselves off because there is a degree of difficulty. We're practicing patience to be able to bring this in. We're practicing tolerance to be able to bring this in. And then implementing the teachings. That as we become practitioners, we're not just reciting these practices, we're not just reciting these prayers and words, but we are implementing these into our lives. We are becoming more loving kindness. We are becoming more compassionate. We are becoming more joyful. We are becoming more balanced, more equanimity is taking its place in our lives. So we are implementing the teachings in our lives, and we're sharing that with others, and learning how sometimes we're having difficulty, maybe they're having difficulty, and we're sharing to find out ways in which we can solve some problems and so on. So implementing the teachings, and then living life as a practice, that now this becomes our lifestyle. It's something that we're doing all the time, and we realize that as a practice, we make mistakes, and we have forgiveness for ourselves, and we have forgiveness for our brothers and sisters who they themselves are making mistakes. And we're not holding them, with any kind of disparagement because there's been a mistake or something. We forgive them. We maybe, if asked, maybe we bring it to their attention. If we do it very skillfully with 60 melodious voices. We're very careful about that. And but we're living life as a practice, and our life becomes the practice. And this is a very important part of what this means to receive this wisdom, and now to be able to actualize this wisdom in our own lives. So all this is the left hand touching the ground. The right hand touching the ground now is protection, and suppresses the 1 million maras before enlightenment, the mara of delusion, the mara of contamination, the mara of controlling others, and the mara of being controlled at the time of death. So the right hand is giving. This is what's going out. Left was coming in, right is going out. So now we are giving protection. We're giving protection to ourselves, and we're offering protection to all others. And to suppress the 1 million maras before enlightenment. So in our lifetime, how many maras, how many demons, how many emotions have arisen within ourselves? And how many have we had to encounter with all the many, many, many people that we have met in our lifetime? Well, and what about previous lifetimes? So we can say that there's 1 million maras. So whether the number is 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 or 10 million, whatever it is, there's many, many, many maras that we encounter before we before we attain enlightenment. So we are suppressing them in a way that to be able to not have them come and take over us, to subdue us. So sometimes the suppression means that what we are doing is that we are transforming them, that we are helping them to transform and so on. But what we are doing is protecting ourselves, protecting others from these Mars, from these demons, from coming and robbing us of our ability to be able to attain enlightenment. So we do this through the symbology of these 4 main Maras, these 4 fundamental Maras. The Mara of delusion, the Mara of ignorance, the Mara of arrogance, the Mara of thinking that we don't need this in the first place. And that no matter what level we have attained, that we think we have attained the perfect level and we don't need any more. that we have perfected this, and we become complacent with that, and we become arrogant about that. So we have to be ever vigilant about delusion, about ignorance. We don't know what we don't know, but we have the human condition has a very strong tendency to be conceited and to be arrogant, to think that it is the best and that everything here is for our benefit only, and that we can enslave, that we can harness, we can use everything with impunity, including having conflict with other beings, other human beings, to be able to attain what we set about as to be our goals and so on, regardless of what they are. So we have to face the Mara of delusion. And second is the Mara of contamination, because we may have gone through periods and attainments. We have attained, we have risen above our very base level. We have learned some things. We have gained some wisdom. We have gained some skillful means and so on. But we can get contaminated. That we're not completely perfect. We're not completely purified, and we're still subject to contamination from coming in. So it's just like, we have a cold and we get over having a cold, and maybe for a time we think that we're not going to get sick anymore, but then we come in contact with some other microbes, some other cold microbes someplace, some other beings come in, and we get sick all over again after we just went through all this stuff to heal ourselves of the cold or the flu or something like that. So it's much like that we use the Dharma to purify our body, speech, and mind, but then we're still vulnerable to be recontaminated, to fall backwards, and we need to rely again on the Dharma to pull us up and so on. But here we're looking at the Mara of contamination, that we see that contamination coming, that we see our vulnerability, and we create a fence, a Vajra fence, to protect us from being contaminated. So then third is controlling the Mara of controlling others. This is where we think that we've gotten to a point now where we have reached such success that we can tell others what to do, and that we can take in phenomenal nature, and we can use this phenomenal nature for our benefit and for maybe the benefit of other beings. But we think that we're in control. We want to be in control instead of being able to just be able to share the wisdom, be able to share the compassion and the joy and the equanimity, and let other beings discover things for themselves, to work out their own things. They need to do things their own selves and so on. So we need to know when to step back, to be objective, and not to be trying to control other beings all the time. And then the last is the Mara of being controlled at the time of death. We have a great gift that we gave ourselves by being born in this realm of samsara, because it's here that we can recognize our sufferings, the causes of those sufferings, and we can purify. So this is a great gift that we've given ourselves, our life. The second great gift that we give ourselves is the ability to be able to have a noble death, to be in control of our death, to not ascribe our death to the control of others, that we become aware that at some point we are going to die. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know if it's going to be an accident. We don't know if it's going to be from illness. We don't know if it's going to be from injury. We don't know how it's going to happen. So we always have to be careful that we are in control of ourselves, so that when we come to the moment of death, that we are not charged with any great negativity, that we are passing joyously, that we are passing gratefully, and so on, and being able to let go. And so to be able to have this control of our death is very important. And we need to think about that in terms of if we go to the hospital, that our loved ones know what our wishes are, what kind of a state, if there's a question as to, well, can they keep me alive by the machines? And how long do you want me to be kept alive on these machines and so on, that you give instructions to them or to the doctors and to the medical people and so on like that. Or that you want to be able to go home and you want to be able to pass while you're at home in your own room and so on. So to be very upfront about this and to maybe create these documents that state what your wishes are, to be in control of your death. And then most importantly, to be in the Dharma, to be in the presence of the Dharma, to have your mind in the right place, so that when you are in this situation, when you know death is impending, that you are being peaceful, as serene as you can, and to not be hateful, to be in a conflict with someone, saving your life, in a conflict in order, and by taking somebody else's life, and that's a great deal of rage there, and you may think that you're saving your life, and you are, but now you kill somebody in the process, or you maim somebody else in the process. Now you carry that with you your whole life, the rest of your life, however long that is. So by thinking that our life is more important than someone else's life puts a lot of responsibility onto ourselves. So we want to be mindful that we want to practice Dharma and loving kindness and compassion at the time of our death, for ourselves and for others that are around us. So this is the Mara of controlling at the time of death. The Mara always wants us to give up responsibility. It's somebody else's fault. I died because the doctors made a mistake. I died because they didn't know to take me to the hospital. I died because this guy didn't like me and he shot me. We make all kinds of excuses for all the sufferings that we go through, and not the less would be when we die. So we need to take responsibility for our lives. We need to take responsibility for our death. So these are the two hands on the ground, the right hand, the left hand. So now the left knee on the ground.
Hey, Lance,
Yes, sir.
quick question.
Yeah.
Talking about the Mara of death.
Yeah.
Um, how about people that kill themselves? What happens there?
Terrible thing. It's taking a
I
life.
mean, taking your own life. I mean,
Taking your own life. It's a terrible thing. There are, you can say that there are mitigating circumstances. And when we talk about karma, there are grades of karma and responsibility for karma and so on. So there is a karmic result, but with the different circumstances can maybe diminish the intensity of that karmic result, but it doesn't negate the karma altogether. It doesn't forgive the karma altogether. There is a responsibility there. Does that make sense? Life is life, and we have to. Life has all these possibilities, and we need to, we are Buddha, and we need to be able to be in control by being transcendent of whatever the suffering is, So that which would drive us to think of suicide, there's always another way. It may be what appear to be the more difficult way, and but that can be a lesson into itself. That is part of the Dharma. That is part of the practice, to endure that suffering, so that we don't incur more or other negative karma along the way to avoid that responsibility.
And Lance,
Yes, sir.
I'm glad Tom asked that question, because I've seen several times lately where young children, by young children like teens, but children who in this thing that we're going through, have been at home, and they have often been previously like shining stars, students and otherwise, and they have become so deeply lost that a number of them have just simply taken their life, um, to their parents or those who knew them, either out of the blue, or they watched them slowly and painfully withdraw and seem not to be able to reach them, and they took their life. And this question, I hope that this question is relevant, but what about them? What about their karma, their children, their teenagers, and they were doing so well, and this thing has impacted them, and they've done this.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to talking about karma and cause and result. And we're going to talk about that next in Buddhism 101. But there is responsibility there. There is responsibility for the one who takes their life, definitely, no matter, how old they are, they still have a responsibility. And, would the parents share in some of that responsibility in some way? Well, that's an interesting question. And then you can say, well, does society share in that responsibility in some way? And that's an interesting question too, and so, we've heard it said many, many times that, what we're witnessing in society these days is that the spirituality of people has become bankrupt. They use that expression all the time. And we see this suffering as the result of not having a strong spiritual sense of oneself. And they fall into this depression and despair and mental anguish and so on like that, all these emotions and everything, that in many, many cases, I think that having a strong spiritual awareness of oneself will help overcome those problems and lead people away from taking their own lives and doing injury to other people and things like that. So we need to be thinking about not only our own spirituality, but of course, our motivation is for the benefit of the enlightenment of other beings. So by saying that, we're saying their spirituality. And who more than our children and our children's children and their children to come and so on would be more important for us to be focused on that. So it's not just immediate, what we see right this moment, but it's for future generations, that what we are doing has to be for their benefit.
It isn't the responsibility, the responsibility section of it, that it has to be honest responsibility. It's not just, well, we go to church on Sunday and then Monday we turn around and we act any way we want to. It's honest responsibility. We're actually practicing and we're doing it 24/7. We're not just doing it on a Sunday or whatever as show. We're
Sometimes it means that we have to put ourselves on hold, our own progression. Let's put it in terms of a degree. Let's say we've gotten to a third degree of being a bodhisattva. There's 10 degrees, let's say, and we've gotten to the third degree. But before we can go further, we're confronted with this suffering that involves our family, society, children, and so on, the next generation, do we push ahead and say, okay, I'm going to go to the 4th degree and those people got to figure it out for themselves? Or do I realize I can do something to help these people with what I have gained in this 3rd degree level, and let me postpone my next attainment so that I can help them now? Does that make sense? Can you understand that, what I just said? So the work of the Bodhisattva is putting the benefit of others before the benefit of oneself. That is the hallmark of a Bodhisattva. Postponing their own enlightenment for the benefit of others. So we got plenty of time, plenty of lifetimes. And by doing that, by postponing our own enlightenment, that's exactly how we attain enlightenment.
That's the first time I hear this. That's really, I never thought about it this way.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
But it does make complete sense.
Yeah, because we all know it's empty, right?
So
We know emptiness. So this is practicing emptiness. If we start putting ourselves in front of there, we think that we're more important. And that is the antithesis of emptiness. We're creating
So-
substantiality to ourselves.
So when do we know when to hit the brake and for ourselves and put ourselves in the service of others? If that makes sense.
Through
Because
practice.
there you have to reach that critical point to where you're stable enough to where you can help others. Because if you're like, I don't know, a drug addict, or a person that struggles with a lot of things in their life, you cannot go out there and try to be a bodhisattva. You're going to wreck everybody. So first you have to work on yourself.
That's right.
But there comes that moment in your life when you're like, okay, well, I got enough strength. There are people around me that need more help than I do. And at that time, you're kind of like, okay, all right, well, I've got enough, I think. This guys around me, they look like they're in pretty bad shape. So that's the time when you're kind of like put the brakes on and start
Well,
helping others.
You recognize the dynamic of what is happening. You recognize what you are doing for yourself, and you recognize the dynamic of what's happening around you. And you find the equanimity, you find the balance. You
Right.
know, some of us won't realize it right away. One person might realize it way sooner than somebody else, but it's dependent upon our own selves and our own recognition, our own development, our own confidence, and so on. We can have help through the scriptures. We can have help through the practices. We can have help through through our gurus. There's help for us, but we have to engage in all of that to be able to help us to be able to see that, and then it just becomes clear. So it's like we talked about the 3 faiths. There's the yearning faith, I want to do something. There's the trusting faith, I'm going to do it because I'm going to do this path because I trust those that appear to have accomplished this. And then you have the clear faith when you have done it and now you see the results. And it says that here, that was part of our visualization to get to this point here in this practice. The 3 faiths. We have to be clear about the 3 faiths. Shankar.
And I think when I said it, I worded in the wrong way. And just saying that you put the brakes on for yourself, that actually you're not stopping your way to enlightenment. You're actually accelerating that because you're putting yourself into the service of others.
Well, that's right. Thank you.
But the mind,
thank you for
but the-
putting it that way. That's right. That's exactly right. And that's what I said. You know, it's through that we're actually behaving like a Buddha.
But the mind always sees or not the mind, but the ego actually sees it as, oh, we need to stop. We're stopping right now. We're not doing anything for ourselves to progress.
So
But
I think the key word is selfish.
Right.
Where's the selfishness? Is there selfishness or is there selflessness? We ask ourselves, how many times, you're being asked to do this, that, or the other thing, and you're thinking of the excuses that you can make because you're selfish with your time or your resources.
Right.
Or you say, okay, I'll make time, I'll stop what I'm doing, and selflessly I'll help. Yes, Shankara.
We have to be aware of the fact that we can only do for ourselves any advancement that I make on the path, I make by myself. And nobody is really, quote unquote, helping me. You're giving me suggestions. You're understanding where I'm at. You're giving me moral support. But I have to do what's required of me. And until I'm ready to take responsibility to do what's required of me, I can't eat it. You can't even talk to me really, because everything you say goes completely over the top of my head because I'm not tuned in to what's going on.
Well, I think to a point that's right, but I think sometimes you're hearing it, but you're making excuses. But maybe it stays there, and then all of a sudden, you recognize what's being said to you.
True.
So that happens too. But I understand your point. It is our work that has to make the difference.
It's very difficult to get anybody motivated.
But we continue to
work at it. Word is like when I get out of bed in the morning.
But we continue to work at it. And that's what the 60 melodious voices are about.
Exactly.
Finding a way to be able to penetrate those obstructions that people have, and, find another way to express it.
Well, it's like a lot of those teachings we get from Kempos and from monks that as ordinary human beings, we're quick to judge. We don't understand the ways of dakinis or bodhisattvas or how they go about doing things. But we're really quick to judge because we have a certain idea of what a good Buddha should be, and what they should do and how they should practice. So, and they always say, don't judge because you don't know what the end result, what their intentions are. And a lot of these stories we listen to and hear, some of the things that they do, it's uncomprehendable for us because we're still in the infant stages to understand what a grown-up is doing. So, we should always keep an open mind and try to be as giving as we can.
Correct. So, again, going back to this very practice, this is exactly what we're learning to do, is we're taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha into our lineage to help us to do this, so that we're not alone in this. We have brothers and sisters, we have teachers, we have scripture, we have all this support. And so this refuge is learning to do that and breaking through. This is the fundamental reason for the prostrations, to break through our selfishness that says, I don't have to do this. I'm going through this physical hardship. Why am I doing this? It's building character. It's showing us that we're capable of doing more than we think we are. It's breaking through. It's making a commitment and seeing the success of the commitment.
The teachings that we got over last weekend when Drupal was talking about prostrations and saying how meritorious it is for us to do prostrations. And that's something that can never be taken away. No one can take that away. But that spot that you do the prostrations at is such a holy spot, because you are really truly humbling yourself, giving everything. And if you have that mindset, that's a liberating feeling.
No, exactly. And this is another, so that atmosphere, that environment, we're creating this. The first part of this practice was we were setting the Buddha field. We've got the lineage tree in front of us. We know what the lineage tree means. We've studied that. And to this, we are making refuge. We're taking refuge with that. It's within us, and we become the lineage tree. We become the lineage. And as you say, the merit is there as a result. It becomes a protection. It becomes the method with which we break through, but it's also the protection that prevents us from the contamination. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else want to talk? We'll go to the next part. We're not likely to get through this tonight. We'll continue on, but this is good stuff, When Drupal taught this, he taught this over the course of a week or 5 days, something like that. And doing it 5 hours a day. So there was lots of conversation.
Where was this at, Lance?
What's that?
Where was this at that you just talking about?
Drupal's teachings.
At the TMC, Tibet Meditation Center in
Next week,
2005.
you talking about?
2005. Drupal taught this. This is where my notes come from that. But I've since seen them. I've since read them in other books. He wasn't pulling this stuff out of thin air. It was stuff that he learned too, from his masters, and that they are enshrined, so to speak, in the different scriptures and so on. This is a tried and true method. This has been going on for 1,200 years or more. And if you remember the backstory, that this was because the great masters had gone through hardships that tested their resolve for enlightenment. And they went and lived in caves for 20 years and lived off of a bowl of rice for a year and stuff like that. But then as we've got more what we would call progressive, we don't want to do those hardships. We don't have to do those hardships. But the masters who then came, they said, well, those hardships are very good because they test our mettle. They temper us. So here is a group of hardships, these preliminary practices that will create hardships for us with a specific focus to be able to get us to temper ourselves, to understand what refuge is, to understand what purification is, to understand what accumulation and giving is, what offering is, and to understand what the guru is. These are the four uncommon preliminaries, the Ngondro practices that we're doing now. The first one is the prostration refuge. So there's a plan, there's a whole system. This is a system.
Yeah, with 2,600 years, they've had plenty of time to get this all lined up.
Yeah.
They probably made a few mistakes once in a while, but by now they've got it pretty well ironed out.
Well, it's up to each individual to do that, make their own mistakes and fix their own mistakes to purify themselves.
Yeah, we've got to do that with. We've got to really be sincere and not just doing the practice. We have to be sincere in doing the practice.
And we take this with us when we die. These become those imprints that stay with us that in the next life, become part of our karmic winds that blow us in a particular direction so that we can pick up where we left off, so to speak. We have the right family, living in the right place, right circumstances, and so on. That's how we got to where we are.
Yeah.
I would say that we're all very fortunate to be where we are. Look, in terms of some other people's lives that are alive today in different parts of the world, we're like kings and queens. We're like gods relative to the misery that they are going through. So we have to recognize that and not be conceited with that, but to be able to say, oh, well, that's all relative and I have so much more work to do for the benefit of others, those who are suffering in those ways. Okay. So let's continue on now. So we just talked about the left hand and the right hand. So this takes a while, doesn't it? This is serious stuff. It's not to be taken for granted. This is great stuff. This is transformative stuff. So now the left knee on the ground. The left knee on the ground, remember the left side is receiving, bringing in. The left knee on the ground accumulates the 37 characteristics of the enlightened being, including the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path, if you remember, is the fourth of the Four Noble Truths. So it's listed right here. Right view, right protection, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right absorption. They are part of the 37 characteristics of the enlightened being. So that's 8 of them. So there's 37, so there's 29 left. So part of them is explained in the next page. Page number 5. The 10 bhumis of the bodhisattvas are part of the 37 characteristics. To have great joy, to be stainless, to be radiant, to be luminous. It's very difficult to train in. It's obviously transcendent. It's gone afar. It's immovable. It's good discriminating wisdom. And it's cloud of Dharma. The cloud of Dharma here means it's like a blanket that covers you and protects you and keeps you warm. It's not a cloud that obscures your vision. It is like something that comforts you, protects you. So these are the 10 bhumis. And you see that these bhumis arise from the paramitas that we've already talked about quite a bit, a couple different times in different books. We've talked about the bhumis. Excuse me. So great joy arises from the paramita of generosity. When you finally give something to somebody, especially when it hurt you to do it, it became difficult for you to do it. You only had $20 left and you gave somebody 10. You didn't want to give them the 10, but you made yourself do it. And now the great joy that you have when you see the joy that it brings to them. That's just a coarse example. But generosity brings great joy in time, resources, whatever. Stainless, that arises from the paramita of moral ethics, of discipline, stainless. That we can stand and have confidence that we are doing good things and that we're not doing negative things, that we're not being harmful, that we're not creating suffering in other people's lives. We're not creating stains for ourselves that we come back and haunt us, these stains, things that I did when I was 8 years old or something like that, or 12 years old, or 18 years old, or 25 years old. Things I wish I could take back. You know, so we do what we can to make amends for those stains. But as we move forward, that we become stainless through moral ethics, that we're not creating more stains. And radiant, that arises from the paramita of patience. Radiant. Radiant like the sun. The sun is just radiating light, radiating heat. No expectation of any of it coming back. It's just radiating. So the Buddha is just radiating loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity to all beings with no expectation of anything coming back. When we do Om Ahom, we want to do that with our body, speech, and mind. We want to be pure bodhicitta, radiant bodhicitta. And it takes patience. It is the result of patience to not have any expectations and to do it in spite of what we might think of as the the unworthiness of those that we are shining upon. Because many times we have that attitude. Why am I doing this? These people aren't getting it, Why am I wasting my time with these fools? Why am I thinking about these people that are so poor they can't even grow, they don't know how to grow their own, food and everything? Why should we support them? Why should we do these things for them? But to have patience and show bodhicitta, and time will change things. Circumstances will change. These are our mothers. to think of them all as our mothers. How much patience will we have for our mothers or our fathers or our children, our loved ones? To have patience for all beings in that same way. We become radiant. And they may come back to us for that radiance. They come back to us for the heat. They come back to us for the light. We say, why do they keep coming back? Why do they keep bothering me? But we're patient. We keep at it. We're radiant just because that's our natural state. So then luminous, that arises from the paramita of perseverance. So now we're taking that patience and we are constantly being radiant, and now we are lighting the darkness that surrounds everything else. If there were no sun, will we be able to see on the planet Earth? Will we be able to see the planet Mars or the moon? It would all be invisible to us. It would all just be blackness. But because of the luminance quality of the sun, now we can see things, because that energy comes and it lands on us and it ignites everything around us so that we can see in the darkness. And this is by way of perseverance. If we continue to do this with our children, if we see it with our children, if we have perseverance with our children, eventually they get it. And when we have young children, and especially teenagers, my God, and not until they're maybe in their 20s or 30s or 40s, so they start having children of their own, do they recognize what you did for them by showing all that perseverance and patience. So in spite of that, we have to have patience. In spite of that, we have to have perseverance. So we can think of it for ourselves that we need perseverance, we need patience as we are developing ourselves in our Dharma career, in our Dharma, development. We have to have patience for ourselves, and our teachers have patience for us. I mean, they're teaching us things that they learned, years and years and years and years ago, maybe lifetimes ago, but they continue to teach it over and over again. And don't you think that maybe they would like to go on a retreat? They would like to go on a 3-year retreat or a 5-year retreat. But they have put that on hold to be able to be our teachers. I met more than one Kempo who has said, I haven't done retreat because I had to teach. I want to go on retreat, but it's not my time. And recognizing that is part of the development that we're all searching for. They realize that and they accept that. They say, okay, maybe next lifetime, whatever that is. But now it's my time to do this, to be a teacher. So this is another reason why when we're in the midst of the Kempos and the Drupans and the yogis and so on, that we are taking, showing gratitude to them for their compassion. So this is luminous. And then very difficult to train in, that arises from the paramita of meditative concentration. What does it take to get to these levels? Is it something that you read in a book one time and you put the book down and now all of a sudden you got it? Or is it something you got to read it in a book? You got to hear it from the teacher? You got to practice it over and over again? You got to go back to the book? You got to hear the teaching again? Remember, the circle goes around and around and around. We hear these things over and over and over again because we're refining, as we're hearing these things, as we're reading these things, we're creating these mental images of what we think this means, but it's full of contaminations. It's full of our mental conceptions, misconceptions of what we think it means. We're always stepping on it with our arrogance, with our ego. So it gets refined, just like a mill, millstones. You put the grain in between the millstones and they're grinding and grinding and grinding, and they can grind to the point where it gets to a fine powder. That may not be productive. You can grind too much. You don't want to grind away, all the nutrition, but there is a point where you got to stop the grinding and you got to start imbibing. You got to start taking it in and using it as nutrition and so on. So this meditative concentration is very difficult to train in. It takes years and years and years, lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. It's taken us lifetimes to get here. And as we get deeper into our meditations, we begin to remember, not literally, maybe not literally. Say, I remember in 1850, I was laying in my bed down when I was in Egypt and I was thinking about this, it's not quite that literal, but you start remembering, the power of the Dharma teachings coming together, the power of understanding the bhumis and understanding refuge, understanding all these concepts, these relative concepts as a human being that we need to be able to understand, purify to the point of being able to liberate from them so that the sufferings don't pull us back. It sounds like an oxymoron. We're learning stuff that we're going to let go of. We're trying to remember things that we forgot. But it's part of the human condition. We have to understand what it is to be a human being, to be able to transcend being a human being, to be a sentient being. And human beings are the only of the sentient beings that are able to do that. It's not a particular source for arrogance, but of gratitude. So very difficult to train in. And the next one is obviously transcendent, that arises from the paramita of wisdom awareness. So wisdom awareness means you may not be wise, but you are aware of wisdom. You are aware of what is truth and non-truth. You are aware of what is virtue and non-virtue. You begin to understand, you be able to see discrimination of action, discrimination of bringing things in, doing things out, and so on. You begin to do that. And as you do that, you become transcendent. Maybe not totally transcendent, but transcendent in, you can see it in your own life. You can see how you've grown and others see it. Like I said, there are people who would look at us to be like kings and queens and gods and goddesses. To them, we are totally transcendent.
I have a question, Lance.
Yes, sir.
I was in a book study yesterday, Blue Mountain Dharma, and we were talking about concentration a little bit. I believe one of the alternate translations where we came up with for the Mahakala, where it talks about assessing the concentration of oath-bound practitioners, I think one of the things that popped up was the word absorption. Could you please talk about the word absorption vis-a-vis concentration? It's just be curious your thoughts on the two words, talking about, I guess, the same idea, same phenomena. Is it a fair
When we talk
translation?
about, you want to answer the question?
No, I was going to say, go ahead.
With wisdom awareness, we often talk about it, the absorption of wisdom awareness or the concentration of wisdom awareness. And sometimes even with meditative concentration, there it says, concentration. So it's becoming the embodiment of that. How much we absorb, how much of it that becomes, it's not just implementing the teachings, it's the teachings that we become the teachings. Our life becomes the teachings, that we become totally absorbed in it. That we, at some point, we have bodhicitta within us, but that we become pure bodhicitta. And this is the body, speech, and mind, that everything we do with our body, speech, and mind is completely absorbed in bodhicitta. There's no thought about it. There's no need to have thought. So this is, one of the ways in which we characterize, Buddha nature, saying, oh, Dharmakaya is no thought. But yet the Buddhas are pure example of Dharmakaya, because they are the pure absorption, the pure concentration of bodhicitta. So I think that's how I explain it.
It seems that concentration has more of a tone of practice. Absorption has more of a tone of a state,
Well, maybe
condition.
so. I'm not a linguist or whatever you want to call it to study that.
Okay, thank you.
It makes sense though, but that's good stuff to study. I use a dictionary more now than I've ever used it before, I think, because I'm not taking for granted that I understand what words mean. I'm always looking them up. And sometimes the meaning that we need is the sixth or seventh meaning in the category of the word. They'll give the popular meaning, then they'll give an inner meaning and so on like that. So you got to read the whole entry for a particular word to sometimes get what you're looking for, because it's a little bit more abstract. So yeah, studying the words is good stuff. Okay, so now gone afar. So the gone afar now, this is that arises from the powerful meat of the paramita of skillful means, that we've gone afar. When we really do the work, when we invested our time, when we've invested our skills and so on, then, we're no longer, coming back. There's no falling back into the three lower realms. We've gone afar. We've gotten, to some place above, some place beyond. We've gone afar. Gone, like the paramita, like the Heart Sutra. Teatam gate, paragate, parasam gate, buddhi soha. Gone afar. And we do it in degrees. It's not all at one time. This is a early misconception, I think, that people have when they come in to Buddhism, and they expect that there's going to be, this epiphany, and all of a sudden they're going to be Buddha and everything's going to be great. No, it happens in stages, and there's it may be there for a moment, but then all of a sudden it's gone. But then we have to work at it, and the moment becomes a longer moment, but then it goes again, and you have to keep working at it and so on. So the point is that this going afar is the result of working at things through skillful means, developing our practice, developing our studies, developing our relationships in the Sangha, and so on, is all part of the skillful means. And what results is that we are gone afar and not to return to the lower realms, to the suffering in the same way that we came from. You know, we can reach levels of nirvana. All this is speaking of levels of nirvana. You know, nirvana is still within the duality, the dual nature of samsara and nirvana. And we can fall backwards at any time. But it's being aware of that, again, taking responsibility for that and managing that. Gone afar means that we can go into levels of nirvana, gone afar that it's going to be very, very difficult for us to go back to samsara if we would want to. Who would want to? So then immovable, that arises from the paramita of aspirations, vows, and wishes. So immovable. We are steadfast. We know that we are on the path. We know we are doing this, and nothing is going to get me off of this at the risk of my own life. You've heard that expression, that phrase used many times in the prayers and practices, you know, to continue this work even at the risk of one's own life. Totally immovable. Whatever level I have achieved, I'm immovable from that in terms of moving downward. I'm committed to the path, committed to the practices and so on. And doing this through our aspirations, through our vows and through our wishes. It's our choices and it's our conviction, it's our resolve, the right resolve. That's the second of the Eightfold Path. I have the right resolve. You know, so we're developing that, and it gets stronger, stronger, stronger. And then now we see here we are in the eighth booming, and we see that resolve now is really making a huge difference. The resolve that in the very beginning, now in the eighth, is now coming to its fruition of being immovable. And then good discriminating wisdom that arises from the paramita of the 10 strengths of the Buddha. So good discriminating wisdom. So this good discriminating wisdom now takes on a higher meaning than what we might see as being able to differentiate between good and bad, what I'm going to do today, making choices for ourselves. It's being like at the level of Amitabha. Amitabha is the wisdom of discriminating awareness. Now we're talking about good discriminating wisdom. Awareness is one thing, wisdom is another. You know, so here's good discriminating wisdom. So if we look at page 11 and 12 in this text that I've given you, 11 and 12, we see the 10 powers of the Buddha on page 11, and 12, the 10 strengths of the Buddha. So we can see what this means. And remember, all this has to do with the left knee on the ground. Taking in all of this, the 37 characteristics of the Buddha. So if you want to know what Buddha is, here is 37 characteristics of it. Everything we've been talking about so far.
I only go to 8 pages.
You only go to 8 pages?
Yeah.
Well, you get a refund.
Can we get the other?
Can we get the double rabbi discount on this?
Yeah. I'm sorry about that. You sure it's only 8? Well, all right, you may have an older copy. I'm sorry, my mistake. Sometimes the older copies get mixed up with the new copies, and I sent it out without realizing it.
By the way, Lance, when I was organizing the text, you know, when we thought Gary needed one, I was very careful to make sure things were complete and not incomplete.
All right. All right, so sorry about that. And I guess, did you get that offline, or was that something I sent to you? Bonnie?
You sent it to us.
If you look online and one of the, I might have sent it, did I send it out online to everybody? All right, well, all right, I'm sorry. All right, well, anyway, pay attention, and we're gonna have to go over this next time anyway, because we're not gonna get through this tonight.
Okay.
Can I borrow a few dollars? I can't pay attention.
If that makes a difference, you bet.
Yeah.
Lance, I got a quick question. I'm sorry, let me let you finish with the 10 boomies, then I'll ask my question.
No, I'm not gonna get through it. You go ahead, ask your question.
Eightfold Path, 10 boomies is 18. And then I see 8 bodhisattvas. Am I missing something? It doesn't add up.
Don't grind me right now, okay?
I'll have to wait till next week for that, huh?
Well, there's always more. All right? So don't be so literal on me right now.
Don't what?
Don't be so literal on me right now.
Okay,
But if you want to, you can go to the Jewel Ornament of Liberation and you can look it up.
okay.
It's in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation.
So you only gave us the ones that were really important?
The ones I thought you could remember.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe I could remember. The ones I could teach. Let's put it that way. All right. So we're almost at the end. So we'll come back to this, but let me see, where are we here? So the 10 bhumis, so good discriminating wisdom from the 10 strengths of the Buddha. So we need to look at that. We'll look at that next week. We'll go over that. And then the cloud of Dharma that arises from the paramita of primordial wisdom. So the cloud of Dharma, like I said, is like this blanket of comfort, this blanket of protection, this blanket of how else would I say, protection and comfort, you know, the you're completely immersed in, that comes from primordial wisdom. And this primordial wisdom is the experience of the meditation. This cloud of Dharma is not something that you read in a book. You read what it is to get there, but then you have to make that jump yourself. You have to make that effort. You have to make that commitment to attain the perfection of primordial wisdom. And that comes from the practice, comes from the meditation. And not just sitting there and going through contemplation, but going through contemplation to then get to the point where you are in primordial awareness, the experience of that. So, of course, that is very, very, very subtle. It's very, very, very fine. And we're not likely to get there in this lifetime. But to be aware of it is very important. So altogether, this is the path that leads to Buddhahood. So we talked about this in Buddhism 101 a month or so ago when we were talking about chapter 19. So you can go back to chapter 19, look it up, and you can see all these references. All this stuff came from there. You know, Drupan talked about, you know, what this particular left hand touching the ground, and then we took it, talked about it, and expanded on it, and it's all from the book. So I don't think any of us is going to be able to memorize all this, but I think a fair amount of it you can, at least to know what the main bullet points are. And as you're doing 100,000 perfect prostrations, you have plenty of time to be able to be reciting this and thinking about this. You remember, you're accumulating prostrations and you're reciting the refuge prayer while you're doing it. But in the refuge prayer are all these references to these other things. So you can be reciting these other things and committing all these things to your memory. At one time, I remember I memorized all this. If I gave myself a day or two, I probably could get most of it back. But this is what you do. This is what practice is about. This is where transformation is. This is where transcendence is. Becoming something other than what you started out as. We don't all have the ability to do that in this lifetime. We have responsibilities and so on to our families, and we know that. But at the same time, we are doing now, building the karmic seeds for what it is that happens in the next lifetime. Not so much for Lance or for any of you per se, but for the beings that we become. Maybe our energy comes together and galvanizes together. Maybe we all become Buddha Maitreya. For Buddha Maitreya to have that much energy had to be the force of so many other beings all coalescing together. For Buddha Shakyamuni to have all that life force with so many beings galvanizing together, coming together, and then becoming Buddha Shakyamuni, being born as Siddhartha Gautama. Okay, so we'll leave it here for tonight. So is this important stuff? Is this good stuff? What do you think? Amanda, what do you think?
Yeah, it's very important. I think it's very profound. It seems like the essence of all the practices. So it really did. I'm starting to see, I'm thinking about other practices and I think, oh, it's here. it's in this. So it's wonderful.
Yeah. The Ngondro practice is the basis of all these other practices.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that as we talk about it.
Good. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comment you want to talk about?
It wouldn't be a waste of one's life to do this for the whole life.
I don't think so.
It would not be a waste.
It's very true, Thomas.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And I don't mean to grind on Curtis on purpose, but Curtis is an exacting guy. Is it 1 meter or 1 millimeter? There's a big difference between the two, right?
That sounds like the boss side of the family, Curtis. Sounds like my dad's side of the family.
I got it from you, Lance.
Curtis will keep us honest, that's for sure.
What's that?
I say Curtis will keep us honest.
Well, I got it from you, Lance, because you're exacting too. And that's an admirable quality.
All right, well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Oh, it is.
It's not true, but I'll take it as a compliment.
No, you have good attention to detail, Lance.
I have good intention of detail.
What?
Good intention of detail. Okay. All right. Well, then, so I'm going to go through this very quickly because it's after 9 o'clock. So now we do our prostrations. We visualized all this. And now we finish out on page 32. We start Om a I U ri ri li li e o ang a ka ka ga ga na za 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 na da 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 na da 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 na ba 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 ma ya wa la wa sa sa ha ka sa so ha Om yu dame he du pa wa he du da gan da ga to he wa da 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 ta ka sa yo no ra da e wa ma ri ma shi ma ni e so ha Om ba ju za wa za me ya ma no ba le ya ba ju za wa da no ba ju de de me bo a zu do ga me bo a zu bo ga me bo a no ra me bo a so is it he may buy out the sorry karma sasu me says that you are guru ha ha ho bhagavan sar tata gata baza bami manji bazu baba ma samaya satwa ha Deata pensa tu a bonanes or they don't better do 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 bonanes so ha this is it. The Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas are the 5 families in the 3 times who have destroyed all defilement, lead to equipoise of the enlightened mind. It's why we do deity yoga. The enlightened body, speech, and mind of the peaceful and wrathful deities is the Buddha. The body, speech, and mind of the Buddha is the cause for enlightenment of all sentient beings. The bliss and strength in the heart center of the Buddha is equipoise. Om Ruru Daru Mugi Mugi Zoam 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 Om Ruru Daru Mugi Mugi Zoam Ruru Daru Mugi Mugi Zoam Dai Dai Bandai Za 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 Ha Om Hanabashbari dies, 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 so ha. Om Ahong, Om Ahong, Om Ahong, Om Ahong, Om Ahong, Om Page 36. The objects of refuge dissolve into the main figure, Vajradhara, and he dissolves into your crown. Gyabyo Kornam So Dang Deyang Wudu Serne Rangla Tempa Gyor. And we meditate the dissolution. And then we do our prayers. So we'll just do abbreviated prayers very quickly. By this virtue, may I achieve omniscience. By defeating all enemies, confusion. May all who travel in the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara. As Manjushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddha who attained the 3 kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, merit bear fruit. May the teachings of the great Sri Kompa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Om, Ah, Hom, Om, Ah, Hom, Om, Ah, Hom. Thank you all very much.